I was gonna say if we were gonna do a Chapo soundboard, mine would probably just me saying and then mispronouncing things. It would just be like,
Zine.
kinda like Zine.
Greetings, friends.
Yeah. Greetings, friends.
It's Chapo. It's this
Zine.
week's Chapo.
This week's Chapo.
I was thinking about my verbal cues and tics, and I realized I do a lot of Trump things. Like I say, my verbal crutch when I haven't slept that much is like in terms of that's how I fill space.
Oh, everyone does that.
I know I've spoken about this with you, Matt, but in terms of the way Trump has all just infected our brains now and how fun it is to do a Trump impression, I, like you, have noticed that I've started talking with my hands.
I do the
more.
hand
I
thing.
already was doing
I do the
this.
thing where it looks like you're doing your
And, like,
signature.
It's fun. It feels
Yeah.
good.
I feel cool when you do this.
Yes.
This is part
It's like-
of business deals.
Yeah, you're doing deals, and you're reminding people about all the good deals you've done.
Well, have you guys noticed that since Trump became president, we've been doing more business deals?
That's true. We've done
so many
I think
business
that our
deals.
number of
true.
business deals has increased by over 500% since Trump was
I did a business deal yesterday. I got my super to come to my apartment and see that my shower was broken. It's a business deal.
I bought some a beverage at a coffee shop, and I paid with a card. But then I did the tip with cash,
Business deal.
and I had it in my hand, and I made sure someone was looking when I put it
Business.
into the cup. Business deal.
Hello, friends. It's your Chapo for this week. This is sort of an odd episode out because for the first time in a long time, I'm not in the room. I'm coming to you from elsewhere, from another place, while the gang is all together. Hello, everybody.
Hey, everyone. This is like a pretty hard time for me. I'm not used to Will calling in remotely. It's giving me PTSD from the other times that we did it when we were all remote, and it was kind of hard, and sometimes we couldn't get our audio all in, and I'm just going to say I shouldn't be alone right now.
Well, this is I made the joke 2 episodes ago when Matt was finally in the room that I would be out of town at the Menaker estate overseeing the sale of all of my family's FBI transcripts and recordings. But that is actually where I am right now. I am at the Menaker estate. And I'm sitting in the throne in which I recorded so many classic Chapo episodes, like "Reign Over Me," the Maria Hengeveld Nike supply chain interview, the Vic Berger episode. So I'm back on my bullshit. What can I say?
We didn't all really record in the same room until we did Brooklyn Tyrannical Gardens. And that was all on a Blue Yeti mic.
That's true. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yep. It was a while ago.
This is some behind the scenes stuff. And this is actually, I would just like to take this opportunity to say, should I die tragically, I would like to request the Viking funeral in which a flaming arrow will be shot at sort of an oil-soaked wooden ship that Brendan is also on board and while he's alive.
I thought a Viking funeral is when they punt your body into the field goal post while playing Atlanta, 1999.
Can I just note that Matt is gaming?
Yeah, holy shit. This
Mr.
is
Anti-immigrant is fucking playing
wow.
a fucking donut game
Hangs
or
out
something?
hangs out with Virgil once.
Oh man.
No, I'm done gaming.
Oh, now you are.
I'm weaning myself off of a very brief.
Where is Virgil right now, by the way? Why is Virgil not present?
He's also gaming.
He is legitimately gaming in whatever weird. I mean, I was just looking at my phone. He's got some sort of sensory deprivation tank with one of those armature chairs so that he can simulate being inside Halo or whatever the fuck. I don't even know.
He does not play Halo.
Oh, that's right. Overwatch.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to let too much time transpire before introducing our guest for this week. Joining us for this episode is our friend Karina Moreno, who is sitting in, and we're going to talk a little bit about, as promised, DACA and immigration. Karina, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good, even though I'm sorry I can't be physically present at this moment. But thanks to the computer, I can still talk to you.
Yeah, I wish you were here.
We all do.
So I mentioned on last week's show that we were sort of putting off talking about this. It's one of probably the major non-hurricane thing that's in the news currently, and I'm talking about the pending repeal of DACA. So I guess just to begin, I want to ask just very simply, what is DACA? What did it do? And what would be the practical effects of its repeal?
Okay, so DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It is a 2-year permit. It was a sort of moderate compromise first step by Obama, who used his executive powers to pass this in 2012. What it does, it basically allows people who are undocumented the opportunity to work in the U.S., the opportunity to get a valid ID. So the practical implications of this vary from being able to have a checking account at the bank, being able to, if you are pulled over by police when you're undocumented, the biggest concern is not having a valid form of ID on you. So this provided relief, a sort of triage relief of being able to have ID and work in the meantime. It's no long-term program. It was completely contingent on essentially passing on the presidency to Hillary Clinton. And so now we're dealing with sort of the disaster of that not being the case.
So two of Obama's biggest points of legacy were DACA and the Iran deal. And they were both kind of contingent on this, in retrospect, totally insane idea that Democrats would win the presidency in perpetuity. And they also hinged on this idea that with other people, you should take a deal with the American government because we'll always honor it. And it's just so fucking insane. And we're going to get into what the Trump administration is doing to DACA. But with that and the Iran deal, it's not exactly like the Democrats are fervently going to protect either thing that hinges on the trustworthiness of the American government, because at the end of the day, they don't give a shit. Right.
So here's the thing. Like I said, it's a moderate first step. It's very compromised. It's a compromised position to start in anyway. It affects less than 10% of the undocumented people in the U.S. He did it because it's sort of an easy place to start with people who were brought here as children and have essentially been raised as American, right? Who have graduated from high school, who speak the language, who in many other measures are assimilated. But it really doesn't provide any sort of long-term solution to the immigration problem. I mean, I even feel weird calling it the immigration problem, but the reality of the immigration system in the U.S. Right now, what's happening with DACA, it's already been decided that it will only continue through these permits will only be valid through March of next year, of 2018.
So, Karina, about how many people does this DACA program actually apply to?
Close to...
You mentioned it's less than 10%.
Yeah, it's close to 800,000 people.
And these are mostly, high school aged kids or younger?
So when they got it, to be eligible for DACA, you had to have arrived to the U.S. before the age of 16, and you had to be younger than 31. So we're talking about young people generally who grew up, graduated high school, had completely clean record.
And these their parents are undocumented, and they came to this country at a young age. They not born here, but essentially have lived here for quite a bit of time, gone to school here, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So when the DACA program was passed, there were plans to have a sort of complementary program called DAPA, which is the same thing, but for the parents of these recipients. That was immediately shut down by a number of states. And so that was immediately out of the picture.
So this was a compromise position that was done by Obama via executive order because there was just absolutely no way he was going to get Congress to do anything, humane or sensible regarding the children of undocumented immigrants, right? And as such is basically in an incredibly tenuous position because it's predicated on the idea that the Democrats would continue to hold the executive branch. And for instance, someone like Donald Trump, who in no small part ran a campaign based on, I don't think it's too strong to say, promising to ethnically cleanse a large part of America, would ever win.
Yeah, I would say the most unfortunate thing about DACA is that it sort of halted the push for the DREAM Act because people at that point in time took it as a win. And so we gave up pushing for the DREAM Act altogether. The Dreamers are much larger than the DACA recipients. I mean, the undocumented population in the US is about 11 million people. And this is sort of, yes, we need to talk about DACA, but it's really not dealing with the whole comprehensive state of immigration in the US.
Well, it seemed like that was a thing that Obama was just congenitally unwilling to confront. Like the language of DACA really was around, well, these are kids, they didn't do anything wrong, and they've never gotten in trouble, so they deserve it. And like the big unspoken thing was always, well, what about everybody else? What about the vast majority? And he just, it's like because the rhetorical territory was like more difficult.
Yeah.
It didn't even want to confront it.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting angle to sort of the general Obama policy world, that it was so means tested, I think, because for him, for his type of rhetoric, it was easier for him to both moral and fiscally means test people so he could make speeches about the people who deserved it. The people, I mean, that big Facebook post he wrote,
yes,
repeated.
I had such a problem with that.
Yeah, the repeated allusions.
Could you explain what the Facebook post was? Because I'm not familiar with this.
He wrote this big, because the Democratic Party is all Facebook moms now. He wrote this 800 word.
I just want to say that I'm through with fake friends.
I'm selling jewelry. You have to be obligated to buy it, but if you screenshot it, I will tell the homeowners.
Every oyster that you purchase will guarantee to have a real pearl inside of it.
How come when my kid goes to your house, she comes back drunk? You're a bad mother. I saw your camel toe in Bikram.
Is this something that he did recently in response to the proposed repeal of DACA?
Yeah, he did a few days ago.
And Karina, what did he say? And what was your problem with it?
My big problem with it is it's completely framed around the merit of these DACA kids. So it's very, very tunnel vision of, it's completely, I'm like, okay, great. The Democratic Party is obsessed with means testing and with merit again, instead of.
It's a kind of moral means testing.
Instead of this country created the immigration system that it has today because it's addicted to cheap, expendable labor. And it wants to give the appearance that it's anti-immigration or like harsh on immigration, but it's actually wants to stay this way. It wants to keep its undocumented people just because they are easily exploitable, and it won't say that, but
I don't know what you're talking about, because I'm looking now at the Facebook post in question, and it starts off very hard hitting. The first sentence is, immigration can be a controversial topic. Apparently Obama he's gone back to middle school and he's writing
an essay.
My uncle works for WWE. He says it's real. No, but it's like, no, that is like, how many times does he use the word striver in there? It kind of reminds me of like, people can talk about like how Brexit is like, it's ending up being like the UK fucking itself in many ways. But like one of the reasons people hate the Remainers so fucking much is because a lot of them, obviously not all of them, because it's a huge group of people, but a lot of them in London specifically, it's like, well, you clearly just want this cheap pool of labor you can keep exploiting and the commodification of other cultures, and not from a humanitarian standpoint. Like, you want the current exploitative system that you're now pretending is like this great humanitarian favor you're doing for people.
Yeah, of course. The service industry, the manufacturing industry, I mean, the agricultural industry, what would happen to them? So there's a lot of interest. I would say that they really just wish to keep the status quo. They just want to give an appearance for political reasons.
Okay, so like that's sort of how DACA was sold and is currently being defended based on the idea that, these kids they're good kids and they're strivers and they're, everything that represents what's good about this country, which, even if that's true or not, is not really sort of beside the point. I want to talk about what would be the practical effect of repealing this in the lives of these 800,000 or so, mostly young people.
So a number of things. First, you have around 800,000 people who most of them are employed. It's over 90% of them who have jobs, who now will have that work permit revoked and cannot work anymore. So that's one thing. Second, you are completely vulnerable to deportation, even with minor infractions, even for traffic violations, if you have any sort of any interactions with police. Number three, you are in limbo. So essentially, you're worse off than you were before Obama passed DACA because your information has been completely handed over. I mean, all of your information, which the DACA application asks for your information, your family's information, every single address you've ever lived at, and then asks for a biometrics appointment where you give hand over like all your fingerprint data, your photograph, and all of that. So you're now essentially all of that is in the hands of the Trump administration, which I don't know how to explain. That's the ultimate betrayal of the Obama executive order, is that you were told to come out and that you would be safe, and now you are not.
That really is the most evil part of all of this. Like, as you mentioned, this idea that this was predicated on the idea that, you would come out of the shadows and receive some sort of official cover, but basically what they've done is create a massive database, including biometric data, of people that are is now just a list of people to be targeted and deported by ICE and a completely maniacal and awful Trump administration who believes the exact opposite of the intention of this law. That they've essentially created they by doing the right thing, now they've just given all of their information, names, and everything over to people who want them gone.
And one of the things that the Trump administration did immediately was change the guidelines for deporting people. So it used to be under the Obama administration, there were criteria for who is considered like a priority for deportation. All of that criteria is removed now. So everyone is equally considered deportable. Everyone is a priority. Like all of them are equally deportable. So it really just completely opens up the grounds for however they want to pursue this.
I mean, are we going to see ICE just going down this list, going door to door, or just finding these people and just arresting them and deporting them?
I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I would say they're very, very vulnerable. I'm not sure what the administration's plan is on how they want to proceed. There were a couple of things that were going on this week. A couple of leaks had said there were already some massive raids planned for September 16th to the 21st across the country. But then that ended up being canceled because of hurricane stuff going on. So I'm not sure.
Also, that week was all of the guys in ISIS's week to be with their kid.
Yeah, I do want to point out that ICE is every federal law enforcement agency is just filled with the biggest pieces of shit. But ICE has to be some of the worst that America has to offer, just as far as people. And they're all the same fucking fat guy who wears a tactical kafaya because they had a cyst that kept them out of the military.
I've been saying for a while, we have to call Department of Homeland Security, ICE and Border Patrol. We have to call them police. They are the leading arrester of all federal agencies combined.
Yeah.
And they have the lowest requirement for acceptance.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, it's
which
literally
they've
just
dumped down even more.
Even more, yes.
It's just literally 150 gamer points on Xbox Live. But I saw this thing about the guy who was a citizen, like he came here and he emigrated with his parents when he was a kid from Jamaica. ICE held him in federal prison for 6 fucking years and then dropped him off 1,000 miles away from his home. And like, of course, the government fought any efforts to get him any compensation for that. They don't give a shit. Like none of them do, but they seem to take like a special pleasure in fucking people's lives up.
Well, there's no accountability because we operate under this like national security paradigm where we are able to operate outside normal politics, and like accountability and democracy, it does not matter because we are in this permanent state of exception. The amount of discretion that they have in their operations day to day is incredibly broad. So people are held in detention in the most inhumane conditions. People have died in detention. Not all of them are undocumented. Most of them, like 4 out of 5, have families in the US that are part of mixed status families where people are citizens, and still they don't have access to medical care. They don't have easy access to get an attorney. Like less than, I don't know, it's like 5% of them or something are able to get access to an attorney. Due process is completely fucked up. So yeah, it's because of there is no way to make them accountable. There is no
And like another issue that you hear a lot is one about private prisons and the idea that the feds were going to stop using private prisons, but like all of these immigration detention centers are all privately owned, right?
They are all, I mean, over 80% of immigration detention is run by the private prison industry. Their lobby is huge and they work with both Republicans and Democrats. But especially now, I mean, they are just having a field day. So last month, Department of Homeland Security hosted what they called an industry day for all private firms who want to pitch their ideas on how they would implement new programs to do Donald Trump's extreme vetting process. So this sort of the use of privatization, it's not just the private prisons who are incredibly who are making obscene amounts of profit, but it's keeps expanding and growing into more and more private contracting and more private firms being now tasked with the like immigration enforcement. It's bizarre.
Now, obviously, like this is taking place in the context of the Trump administration, which, as I mentioned before, ran a campaign for president, and I would say a large part of his support was based on the idea of getting rid of a large part of this country, you know, by undocumented or illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call them. I mean, I think it's basically just a naked appeal to ethnically cleansing large swaths of this country. That being said, I mean, and obviously what he's doing now with DACA is repellent in terms of the fact that they're going to use all of this information against these, mostly teenagers to get them out of the country and return them to places that they largely are completely unfamiliar with. However, I don't think we should, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this within the larger context of America's, you referred to, immigration problem, which is sort of a weird way of talking about it, but the larger structural issue of immigration in America over the last, like, let's say 10 or 20 years. Because, it's not like Trump just came into office and then it's like, oh my God, this is terrible. ICE is going crazy now. Like, but this is, what are everything that led up to this? Like in terms of like the broader, not the problems with immigration, but the problems with which the way America treats immigration, or specifically the issue of undocumented immigration.
I mean, I would say 2 things. In the 60s, the federal government itself created the Bracero program. It was, pleading with Mexican workers to come across the border and do agricultural work. The problem was when, these Mexican workers came and started to have families and started to be visible. That's when the whole, it like backfired on them of like, no, that's not actually what we wanted. We wanted them to be sort of out of sight. But every border escalation, every tough on immigrants law has had, unintended consequences. So in becoming more strict, instead of having seasonal workers go back and forth from Mexico, which is what they used to do and what a lot of them would want to do, you ended up just having this situation where undocumented people stayed in the US indefinitely and could no longer travel back and forth because of the growing restrictions of the immigration policies. So I would say that as one thing that was a huge determinant. The other one is discourse. You just said the word illegal. The word illegal started with the Republicans in like the 80s, and it took the Democrats a few years to then start using it as well. And that took over the media with, the illegals are stealing your jobs, the illegals are taking your welfare. And that's created a whole bunch of divisiveness as well. I mean, the time where someone yelled at Obama, "You lie," was when he was explaining over and over again that undocumented people wouldn't be able to access the subsidies in the Affordable Care Act. So that's created a problem as well that now we have to deal with.
Yeah, but they all got free MRI machines delivered to their homes. That's what I heard. Is that is the thing that just is baffling, seeing the response to the DACA decision as people like, yeah, well, no more free healthcare and free education that I don't get. It's like, what? I think at a certain level, like they're just trying to justify their sadism and prejudice of being like, well, it's really about them getting something that I don't get, that it's not fair. But it is so weirdly divorced from reality, and it's like, how you can't talk someone out of believing that, that there's this weird government program that just gives every undocumented immigrant a frickin' penthouse with a fucking juicero and a soda stream and free weekly dental checkups, and I mean, I don't even. They're not getting it from the news. I don't even see shit like that on Breitbart. It's like it's self-generated.
They like make stuff up and then just tell each other and decide it's true just to make it themselves mad, which is,
well, for instance, what Breitbart did just this week was they ran some story about how like of the DACA, the people it refers to, like 2,000 of them are criminals or something like that. 2,000 out of 800,000. And the photo they used to illustrate that article was a photo from El Salvador of MS-13 gang members. So it's like, not even like what is it even referring to? It's just to goose the fears and prejudices of their Neanderthal fucking readership.
It absolutely just appeals to fear.
Yeah, well, I mean, that, to be fair, that was another Obama bill, the MS-13 Relocation Act.
Well, I mean, that's the other fucked up thing about, like, there have been a lot of like for instance, I know in New York, like on Long Island, there's been a spate of like MS-13 related murders or whatever. But specifically, if you're going to refer about like a crime in, Honduras and El Salvador in particular, why are all those people coming to America in the first place? It's because our country fucking destroyed both of those countries.
There's never the discussion of the circumstances on why people are in gangs or like why people are coming here from Central America. Yeah, absolutely.
Not only that, but also, I mean, Mexico is just one case where back in the 80s, that was when the IMF and the US first started to basically strong arm them into exploding their entire economy, which, neoliberal reform, so-called, there destroyed standard of living, it destroyed income, it destroyed wages, and then everyone pretends like they don't know why people want to move to this country.
Right.
Yeah, it's a general recurring geopolitical problem. Well, like the main things we're fighting about. Let's look at Russia, for example. Let's think about how Hillary was like, Vladimir Putin has a grudge against me. Well, okay, why? Yeah, sanctions after Crimea. But before that, why was there animosity? It's almost like, again, the IMF and World Bank and America, huge hand in instituting neoliberal reforms on this place and destroying and humiliating them. And it's like, yeah, I wonder why we now have this country that fucking hates us, or we have this huge gang problem, or we have this right on our border, this country that's sort of like in a civil war of varying intensity over the years. I wonder who did what that made it this way.
I took her out of school.
Yeah.
What's funny,
yeah.
I mean, you say like neoliberal reforms it accurately summarizes, it describes it, but it's like, it's so bloodless. It doesn't, you can sort of almost forget what it actually means, which is essentially just austerity and the crippling of another country's economy to make it a dependent client state to America.
It's robbery.
And, like for instance, NAFTA, at the same time that the U.S.-Mexican border has become more and more militarized, and we're pouring more and more money into border security and walls and ICE and, like I said, these private immigration detention or concentration camps, if you will, is the time in which it was distinctly like the capital has been made more and more free to move from between America and Mexico, but people can't.
Just commerce.
And the bigot, like on the center left, center right side, the only reason people will be fighting for movement of people is for capital reasons. Like that's the future is people going like, diversity makes us strong. We need more H-1B visas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's also what I want to get into is like, the poverty of like the liberal imagination and the way they talk about things like immigration is, as we've alluded to, it's always on this kind of moral means test of like, these are the best and brightest kids. They're all A students. Like, they're hard workers, or like, hey, Americans aren't going to do those jobs. It's like everything is in the context of jobs and the economy, and not like a broader, the human issue of like, should people not really have to justify their lives in such a way, especially when, if America is going to destabilize and destroy the economies of, let's say, South and Central American countries, like if we didn't want immigration, maybe we wouldn't do that in the first place.
Yeah, well, one thing that you hear from a, I don't know, maybe old-fashioned, cranky, probably at this point Trump style ex-union guy is, well, immigration is so great to me. They come over here and it depresses our wages because they do the work cheaper. And look, I'm a lefty and everything, but I can't abide that. And obviously there's no room on the left to entertain even the first step of that argument, which is like, yeah, you're right, they're a problem and we have to get rid of them. But there's also the in that probably bigoted and old-fashioned argument, there is a kernel of truth, which is that, as we've just discussed,
wages.
The Kochs and we can talk about that too, but the Kochs and the Paul Ryan types, for different reasons, do like immigration into the country, or have pushed for it at certain moments, and that was certainly one facet of the neoliberalization. It was one option, was to say, oh, well, let's just get a bunch of new, fresh labor, into the country that's cheap. But just because they have shitty motives for, at one point at least, welcoming immigrants into the country doesn't mean we have to then oppose the people who have arrived here, or their rights, or the rights they should have.
Right. So the way to immigrants that are here suppress wages. Okay, that's absolutely true. So we should legalize them. We should make them completely equal so that there is no tiered system between undocumented and documented, and then we're like pit against each other. So yeah, I would say that. And and the second thing you mentioned, there's always been the appearance, the hypocrisy of wanting to appear anti-immigrant, America first, but also America needs cheap labor. So it's completely hypocritical.
How about this? How about you have to pay a living wage to any human being working a job within the 50 states of the United States of America, regardless of their immigration status?
And this has been a big thing. So ICE, ever since Trump took office, ICE has showed up at labor disputes. So when immigrants file claims that they were not paid by their employers, ICE has started to show up now. When immigrants have filed claims of workers' comp, that they've been injured on the job, there are certain states that have hired private firms to basically look into these quote fraud claims, which basically means they're just calling ICE to come and pick up people who are working with social security numbers that are not theirs. So there's so many things that are happening that are really disturbing and really, I mean, I understand that DACA is a big story right now, but the whole system is so completely fucked up.
And I think that quasi pseudo left critique of immigration just shows the shows the dead end of nationalism as a concept. Because as long as there are nations with these borders that are patrolled and there are drastic differences in living standards and wage standards between them, there's going to be arbitrage across those borders, and people are going to be exploited by the capital that would, as we said, can move around and make the most advantageous agreement, so that the heavy manufacturing stuff can go places where the social context means no regulations for environment and low wages. In places where you can't move, in industries where you can't move things, then you bring the people who, because of their undocumented status, have less bargaining power.
Right.
The answer to all of this is internationalism and international standards for environmental and regulation, and for wages and standards of living.
Shout out Iglesias.
Yeah, and that's like the nationalist solution for this is as brute and frankly fantastical as you'd imagine. It's walls and like, oh yeah, it's gonna have it's gonna be 50 feet tall, and it's gonna have lasers on the roof, and it's gonna be solar powered or whatever the fuck. And you can see in the way that people who really commit to this Fortress America mindset are just delusional. Like it's a fantasy, it's a sci-fi movie. Whereas building actual international, working solidarity is something that is possible in our lifetimes if we actually try to make it work.
By the way, just on the question of the wall, slight digression, but does anyone remember, and I know this was a really long time ago, and by that I mean like 2 or 3 weeks ago, remember when Trump said we have to make sure the wall is large enough that drug cartels can't throw drugs over
That's why it's got to be
crush
see-through so that people won't get hit.
We just all just kind of just let that go, right? We're like, oh, he did actually say that.
He did say that.
Well, let's move on.
That was an insane thing he said. One of many. But like, why not say all that shit? Say it's gonna have like a fucking swimming pool. say that like there's gonna be like a McDonald's in every 50 yards that just like shoots Big Macs out of a fucking cannon into your fat fucking face. Say anything. It is a fantasy of pure security and sadism, and that's always what it's going to be. And that is the big difference. Like, not only is the nationalist vision of fantasy, it's also built on tiering humanity. Some people deserve to live, some people deserve to die, and the difference is where you were born. And that's not a viable moral calculus to have. Sorry.
I mean, it just won't work. I mean, Bill Clinton started fencing and walls along the southern border with Mexico in the 90s, and they just don't work. It's like a cartoon. You cover one hole, and like then water shoots out of another hole.
And it's like of the two things that Clinton did. Okay, he put some border walls up to stop illegal immigration, but then he also signed a free trade deal that destroyed the Mexican agricultural sector, which had much had more of an impact on immigration. It was that than putting up some fucking fences.
It's funny when you make the argument that walls just don't work. A lot of the time, the counter argument to that from very self-satisfied people will point to the example of Israel as the walls actually do work, and it's just like, I really like that you're making that comparison. I mean, it's doing a lot. It's doing a lot of work on the behalf of the argument you're trying to make.
I mean, if anything, we should be more like Israel every day. And then,
right. And Matt, you used the phrase Fortress America, and I think it's a good one, and I think it speaks to exactly not just the fantasy, but I mean, whatever, the ideology of the people who are behind this. And it's not really about wages or anything like that. I mean, there is, as we discussed, immigration does have an effect on their jobs and wages in America, and there are trade-offs within the context of the current economy and society that we're living in now. However, I don't think that that's really what's motivating this on like I said, from the people who really support Trump and who will support him regardless of anything he says or does, because they're still holding on to this fantasy. And as I said before, I think that fantasy is one of ethnically cleansing America. And I've even heard, I forget which right-wing politician legislation. Somebody recently suggested, what are we going to do with these DACA kids? And they said, well, one thing we could do is round them up and put them to work.
That's not a politician. That's Mark Dice. He's a YouTube guy. But
that was Mark Dice.
Yeah, but okay. He will be. He's going to replace Trump. But it's interesting that the perspective for some is wages, and you're saying that Donald Trump is going to protect people's wages. Donald Trump, who is like never paid anyone anything ever, and the only reason he was able to make all those buildings ahead of schedule is because he just breaks every labor code and fucks over everyone he works with. That's the reason why his lawyer is a guy who posts cheesecake shots of his own daughter, and his doctor is just like, whatever the fuck is going on with that guy, is because he had to find two people who will accept not being paid.
I mean, it's really sad that, people's wages is an issue, but really the only winner that I see is the private companies who end up militarizing the border, who end up, making the drones, or the IT firms that are now signing up for private contracts, the private prisons who are running detention centers. Besides that, I don't see anyone else who's making more money.
I mean, the thing is, American firms with or without immigration are not hiring. Right. They just don't. They prefer to do this thing now where they give the job of what used to be 3, 4, even 5 people to one person, overwork them with the current blurring of lines between work and home life.
Right.
Just run them fucking ragged because they have no recourse, and just, give everyone our gratitude and mindfulness culture that they should be so lucky that they got hired in the first place, as we descend further into this fucking hell where every second of our day is dedicated to networking and increasing productivity for these fucking twats that don't care about us, making these things that no one uses or don't increase utility in anyone's life. And at recent Fed hearings, this has been a problem. The Fed has said, you're not hiring people. Why would we stop raising rates if you weren't even fucking really hiring people when they were lower than they were now? But it's kind of has shit to do with that entire situation.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask now, I mean, obviously, for those 800,000 people that DACA applies to, find themselves now in a very scary and uncertain situation. We don't quite know what it's going to look like. I can imagine a situation where, like you said, ICE are planning these massive raids or what? I mean, they're just going to show up at high schools and start handcuffing kids. I mean, it's not inconceivable to imagine seeing that on the news or reading about it. And what I want to ask is, obviously we can't rely on the fucking government to do any. I mean, they're the ones carrying this out. But for any person who is nauseated by this or knows someone who's in this situation, I mean, what can we do? What is a way to help? What is a way to protest this? I mean, outside massive civil disobedience or just physically stopping people from being removed by ICE? I mean, what can people do?
So my advice would be to partner up and affiliate with organizations that are working both triage in the short term, but are also pushing have a long-term plan of pushing for the DREAM Act, pushing Congress to vote on immigration reform within the next 6 months, as soon as DACA is over. So, for example, Movimiento Cosecha, I can recommend a few organizations that are doing both, because it's not enough to just do triage in the short term. We should also be pushing for the legalization of the undocumented people that are here, the millions of undocumented people that have been here for decades, and are completely vulnerable and exposed.
What would be there's virtually no chance that Congress is going to pass anything like the DREAM Act, though, because it's so fucking right wing.
I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic with. There's never been this is the first time that this program is ending. It's there's a real sort of push with the time limit, because if you don't do it by this time, then there are serious implications afterwards. So I'm sort of factoring that in the equation. I'm hopeful because actually there's something on the line here. There is a time constraint.
Yeah, because they really do like the status quo. Like the actual career politicians, the people in Congress, they're happy with the status quo. I think they have every inducement to want to see a way out of it. The just issue is, the most to get like a small number, and it wouldn't have to be that many Republicans in the House to vote for something without fear of getting, primaried by some chud hooting and hollering about the Dream Act next year. But I don't know. I mean, I think Trump is a master negotiator. He seems like he's really on the ball with this. So, and he wants to see it extended. So that's another reason I'm very optimistic.
There is a possibility that Trump like completely switches around and is like, yeah, I've always been for the Dream Act. Yeah. Like there definitely is
basically saying shit like that. And I was like, look, I love these people. They're amazing. They're fantastic. They're okay. It's going to be fine. Yeah. Like apparently Pelosi made him tweet that don't worry about it. You're going to be okay.
No action right now.
Trump is such a fake friend. Like he loves Schumer now.
Yeah, he loves Schumer and Pelosi, which means
Chuck and Nancy.
It really gave all that money to Schumer.
All they need is just a handful of the remaining, moderate Republicans, quote unquote, to do it. The guys who probably have a target on their back because of voting for the Ryan Care thing, who maybe want to like get a little back in the good graces of their moderate constituents by voting for this. We'll see.
That would be fucking hilarious if that happens. That will be, look, I know we're supposed to talk about how policy affects people's lives, but it's going to be really funny if that happens. How are people going to explain that? Trump is doing 6D chess. He's going to do the Dream Act, and by the next election, people are going to see how bad it is when MS-13 kills everyone, and he'll win in a landslide and get all nationalists in Congress. That's 6D chess. I mean, shout out to Tom Online on Twitter, who went into a Trump group, posted porn, and he said porn.
Yeah, this is
porn. He said,
this is the best news anyone has broken
he said,
all year.
If Mr. Trump asked me to do this, I would do it, and people are yelling at him. And the admin of the group DM'd him and goes, dude, you can't post that shit. And Tom's like, look, it's not because I want to do it. I'm just saying that if Trump asked me, I would do it. I would have sex with him. And the guy goes, obviously I would too if he asked me, but that's not and I feel like that's the best reporting on Trump supporters anyone has done, because it's not like all these NPR things where it's like, they still have faith in him. It's like, they're not going to change their mind no matter what he does. Even if he totally reverses on the core of his campaign, they won't, because that guy said he would have sex with Trump if it was like for Trump. And
because they have a more intimate relationship with him than they have with basically any politician in their life.
Anyone in their life.
Anyone.
I would just say I'm optimistic because public opinion actually is way predominantly in favor of legalizing.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's a good.
Yeah, that's a good place. Yeah, guarded optimism. Good way to end.
Yeah, that's our shit, dude. Is guarded optimism.
Yeah, Will's in the Matrix. He's you're in the pink goo right now.
They jacked you into the Matrix.
Yeah,
you got to get jacked off from the Matrix.
Yes, jack into the Noid.
I was wrong. Apparently, the guy didn't kill himself right away. He killed himself later.
But did he? So he took hostages.
Yes,
and then
he gave up.
And he gave up, and then killed himself. What, in prison?
Years later.
Oh, he got released, and then.
Well, I don't think he even went to prison.
Okay. He was mentally ill.
But
that does make sense.
There was a quote that I had forgotten from the Wikipedia, where apparently the police chief, after they arrested him and he was being interviewed, said he was paranoid.
Oh, come on.
Real thing. Real quote.
Well, so I don't think this is going in, but the Noid.
Why?
It was supposed to be the gnome because he was like a gnome, and then they said that gnome was. I did a little research, and they said gnome was somehow kind of like copyright, like to call it a gnome might run against. I don't know. I'm sure there's garden.
Why would they just call him a gnome? That's stupid. He's the Noid because he makes you annoyed. He ruins your pizza.
I thought Noid came. No, but it's Noid, which means I think it comes from paranoid or
no.
Fucking
he annoys you. You are annoyed. You are annoyed.
I love this conversation.
Wait,
It's Reference to the Mobb Deep affiliated rapper Big Noise.
Okay. Test. And if it starts again, I will let us know. But it seems like we're in the clear now.
Okay.
So I'll do this now.
Okay.
So sorry, we're back from break. We luckily spotted a technical fuck up that would have destroyed the rest of this episode. So
And our friendships.
And
So it was caused by Will Skyping in, so he's been fired.
yes, Will's gone.
No more Will,
Next
folks.
week, Mikey Barbaro will be our new our host and
Yes.
anchor because I've heard. You know what? After we made fun of him, I went and I listened to his podcast. It's amazing. The man is a charisma fountain. He is born for radio, born for podcasts, and I think he's going to be a great addition to the team.
Okay. So Will's no longer here.
Yeah, Will's gone.
Thank you,
He's been
Will, for
fired.
your service. He didn't get us. He didn't get us the biggest Patreon, but he was a good guy who worked on our campaign in terms of subscribership. But we did it. We want to thank him. Will is going back to Breitbart, folks.
So what we had been talking about was we were talking about Lil Bush, the awful cartoon from the end of the Bush years, and just the general cultural desert that was the early aughts. And it brought in mind something that someone showed me recently that to me, it's such a fucking anachronistic thing. It feels like this should not exist in 2017. This belongs in the Bush era. And it all happened because when we were doing one of our live shows in Chicago, I pointed out that we don't have restaurants themed around jobs anymore. We did in the 90s, like the Models Restaurant or the ESPN Zone or Planet Hollywood, like those kind of things.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of just have these sort of bland chain restaurants or fast casual eateries now instead of those. And I said, where is the Troops restaurant? Because like the troops are now sort of the most worshipped profession in America. And I said, how come we don't have a Troops restaurant? And shortly after that, I got a DM from a Twitter user named Struggling Uncle who said, dude, there is a Troops restaurant.
Oh.
It's called the Mission Barbecue. And he sent me the link to their website, and I shit my pants because the first thing you see is the words 9/11. This is a barbecue restaurant. Let's keep that in mind. And so there's a little thing, and it says, "Hey, we've got shrimp," and then remember 9/11.
That is an NYC Guido
Never
tweet.
forget.
Happy birthday,
By the
9/11,
way.
by the way.
By the way, 9/11. And so I looked at this website, and first thing that blew me away is how many of these fucking restaurants are. They are in like a dozen states.
What?
They're in New York. They're in
What?
Ohio, where I was living at the time.
Are they in New York City?
I don't think there's one in New York. Well, of course not.
Road trip.
There's not in New York City.
Yeah,
but they're in like
Coastal
the real American parts of New York. Long Island, for example.
Oxycontin Valley. New York.
Exactly. Wherever people are dying of fentanyl overdoses, there's a Mission Barbecue.
Wherever the main industries are making Fent tea and calling out fake people,
Yeah.
there's a Troop restaurant.
Yeah. So this place, there's tons of these. And I looked at the website and I was just blown away. So they have like what their new foods are, 9/11, and then they have these like stories of service on their website where it'll just be, this is Officer Kenneth Patterson. He was killed by a hip hop thug doing his job. And it's like, this is a restaurant, right? I'm supposed to eat the food. It's like, yeah, and remember the fallen.
Yeah.
So there's a part of their website called Our Story.
Do you tip based on their rank?
I think you
Oh,
do.
that'd be
Well,
awesome.
they do actually have
you
a
for your
thing where
service.
they try to, and I guess this is, I mean, given how difficult it is to get a job after leaving the service, it is good. They have a preferential system for hiring veterans. So
Yeah.
one way or another, you need to thank them for their service
Yeah.
twice
Right.
when you
The two different.
are served by them. You have to be thank you for your service, and also thank you for the ribs.
Oh man, if you tip them, you can't tip them in cash. You have to give them a future airplane seat.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. This is no IOU one exit row seat.
There you
The
go.
restaurant, you
There-
call them sir.
yeah, there you go, buddy. You know what? Let's stop another 9/11. Have fun.
So one of the things on their website is a section called Our Story. And it says, Mission Barbecue opened its doors for business on September 11th, 2011.
Oh,
God.
no.
2011. The day of Benghazi.
10-year anniversary.
It took me
Day of
a-
Benghazi, too. Yes, that's
yeah,
true.
it's not a special anniversary. It just took me 10 years to figure out how to make garlic bread. Pretty complicated recipe, more than you'd think from the name.
No, but that is, as Brendan points out, that was the day of Benghazi. And I like to think that they actually had no plans for a restaurant until they found out about our heroes being left there by Bush or by Hillary and Obama, and then decided, God damn it, we're going to honor their sacrifice.
Yeah, and they opened a restaurant within 24 hours.
Yeah, that is such a cocaine story. To be... Every restaurant is open because someone did too much cocaine.
Yeah.
And then to add like the Benghazi connection, they were doing cocaine and being like, well, what the fuck? I always loved Ambassador Stevens. He was my favorite ambassador.
Vile Rat he was awesome, man.
Yeah.
His moderation was so good.
Just doing the coke thing where you pretend you know someone who died. That's cocaine people's favorite thing to do is to pretend they know people died so they can cry about it. And then to open restaurants and record labels.
Furiously scrolling Google how to make an LLC like that afternoon.
It says, 10 years after our world changed forever, in some small way, we wanted to change it back. It's like, wow, 3,000 people died and we inaugurated 100 years of imperial war against a shadowy enemy and the steady erosion of civil and human rights. How can we take care of that? Let's talk Q.
Oh, what if they had like a Benghazi at their restaurant where it's just like they're stormed by high level Yelpers. They're voting us down. We need more reinforcements. We need more servers.
They only refilled my soda twice when I was at their restaurant. I was there for over 2 hours.
They've taken the soda fountain.
And it says, as the founders of Mission Barbecue, we strive every day to remind everyone what makes our country, in capital letters, OC, our country, great. It's heroes.
Oh, okay.
Who are we? Two friends passionate about barbecue, patriotic for our country, capitalized, and who believe in running a business with meaning and purpose.
I'm sick of those people who are patriotic for other people's country.
Yeah, that's awful.
I'm a nationalist, but for Tobago.
Who are we? We believe there's nothing more American than barbecue.
Hard to argue.
Okay, man.
And nobody more American than the brave men and women who have sworn to protect and serve our communities, capital letters,
good,
and our country, capital letters.
Okay.
We do what we do for the love of our soldiers, firefighters, police officers, first responders.
Oh, God.
All our loved ones in service. So this is basically a combination troop restaurant, Blue Lives Matter.
I don't like how they're
Hashtag
diluting.
Blue Lives
They're
Matter.
diluting the troop brand with the firemen in there.
It's true. If I was a troop, because they are kind of snobby about that sometimes. Like, I'm the one fighting for your freedom. It's like, what? I'm rescuing. I
Firemen
didn't
don't
rescue
kill
fucking
anybody.
kittens. I didn't rescue any fucking nobody. Who was trying to shoot you when you were rescuing that kitten out of that tree, motherfucker?
The guy's dad in American History X.
From Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
Yes.
He got
That's
shot.
true. He got shot doing his job.
Nope.
That's the funniest part of that movie. It's like, wait, why?
Completely
What?
takes you out of it.
You just because that's such like a freerepublic.com thing of someone being like, I'm a hip hop thug. I want to shoot a fireman for no reason. I lit that building on fire to sell more drugs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
We're
sure
gonna do the knockout game.
I'm sure it's happened.
Probably.
It happened. It
At
used to happen
some
in like the
point-
60s.
Yeah.
Like there would be snipers who would shoot at people putting out fires during like the 60s, like the MLK riots.
It actually
and
was
stuff.
kind of genius though to cast the dad from Boy Meets World because he was so wholesome and
He was.
in that scene.
It would have been even funnier though if it had been Mr. Feeney.
that would be funny.
Racist Mr. Feeney. Why are you reading Richard Wright?
Mr. Matthews, I have
Mr. Matthews, I think
FBI crime stats in front of me.
I'm sure there are plenty of white people who've written books just as good as Mr. Wright has.
Why don't you challenge yourself and read Culture of Critique?
So this is the funniest thing in my mind because it's one of those things people say and there's 0% chance that it's true. We set across this great land from Texas to Kansas City, the Carolinas to St. Louis to discover the secrets of great barbecue. I don't. No, you fucking didn't. You did not.
Probably not.
There was not some epic trek across the country going to barbecue restaurants.
It was
didn't
like
do
Lewis
that.
and Clark.
Yeah. So that's the restaurant. There's dozens of them across the country. Their menu items. And this is a little disappointing. They don't have like hilarious troop-based names.
Missed opportunity there.
They're just like sandwiches. Like because Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill, which is I don't know how many of them are left because the one that was in Cincinnati when I was there and went there once closed. Which made sense to me because it was one of the worst meals I've ever had in my life.
Obama closed it down.
Oh God, it was so fucking bad. If you have a chance to go to Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill, go for it because you will be disgusted both like aesthetically and physically because we got like a big plate of nachos and they were like room temperature.
Oh.
It was horrible. There were these patriotic drinks that were like I don't know how they did it, but they had bands of color, so they were red, white, and blue.
Oh, I bet
were
they tasted
slushy.
great.
It was like cough syrup. It was horrifying.
Ew.
It really was. It made Guy Fieri look like Daniel. What's his nuts? And Daniel Pearl. It was really disgusting. But the funniest thing is they had patriotic food night items like the American Soldier Burger,
Jeez.
which made me think that that's what it was made out of.
yeah, like that's not.
But
I don't wanna eat a soldier.
these aren't like that, which is kind of sad.
Oh, there's some like good names you could do with those.
Yeah. Haditha hash browns.
Oh, Haditha hash browns.
Yes.
Fallujah fries.
Fallujah fries, delicious.
There you go.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
This basically sounds like the gay Hooters menu.
Oh, is there something you can do with like blackened like fish and black water?
Yeah, blackwater fish.
Blackwater
that's good.
fish.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
How long? So this is still in business?
Oh yeah. They've been around for 6 years now. They're very popular. They're opening new ones apparently.
They outlasted Toby Keith.
Yeah,
outlived-
his places are closing everywhere.
Yeah.
So
It'd be kind of
Instead of a Mai Tai, you have a Mai Lai.
Nice.
well, it's My Lai, but that
That's
still
true.
is good.
But like we're stretching it to fit the drink.
So there was actually an article in the Washington Post in 2011 when they first launched about them because it grew very quickly. And the two guys, it says in the thing, we're two guys who love barbecue. Once again, bullshit. One of the guys is a former executive at Under Armour.
Hell yeah, dude, that is perfect brand synergy.
And the other was a former executive at Outback Steakhouse.
Okay.
So-
Oh, this is like Andre's Steakhouse.
Yeah, and they talked about how in 2009 they like started messing around with barbecue ideas, which means they did not travel the country,
Right.
lie,
Get your story straight.
get your story straight, and then they opened in 2011. And it really feels kind of cynical, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Because not only do these guys, they're just a couple of assholes. It's not like they're my son died liberating Iraq or any of that.
Yeah.
But also a lot of these places are put next to military bases, like a lot of the early growth. So it's just somebody had the bright idea. It's like, well, if you put a restaurant next to the troops that says troops are a great restaurant,
Yeah.
the troops will probably go.
Wait, were these guys not even troops?
They're not troops.
No.
Right, because they would have told you
No,
for
it's
sure
a
if they
steak
were.
guy and a
Oh.
wicking Under Armour clothing guy who
That is-
decided to say, "Hey, troops, come and
That
troop it up,
sucks.
troop it up."
That sucks so fucking
The
much.
Toby Keith thing was in a way more real because he is at least genuinely a patriotic shithead.
He is, and the best thing about I don't know if they're all like this, but the one that I went to, the bar is shaped like a guitar.
The Toby.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's cool.
That's fucking.
Why didn't the Saudis, keep his chains afloat and just buy the franchise and just turn it into a kebab chain, and he just continues to call it the fucking troop barbecue?
And it does really feel like a Bush era thing. That how did this take till 2011 for somebody to come up with?
Yep.
It kind of blows my mind. It kind of shows that the market is not the perfect mechanism that people say it is, because if it were, there would have been a place like that opened
Immediately.
like
It is
3
shocking that
weeks,
there wasn't.
3 weeks after 9/11.
Oh, like,
Yeah.
and like it would have stayed. It would have been the biggest chain in America. Like John Kerry would have gone there to announce
Oh,
his run
God,
for
yeah.
president to be like, "Oh, we also love the troops."
Whom amongst us does not enjoy a jalapenoed popper?
Isn't there a thing where John Kerry ordered like a burger with Swiss and people thought it was
No,
weird?
it was not burger. It was Philly cheesesteak. You
Yeah.
got Swiss cheese on a Philly cheesesteak, and everyone got incredibly pissed at it.
He's so cool. I was thinking about if people like used AAV with him like they do Hillary, and it's like, John Kerry's a bad bitch. He's slaying. He don't want none of you broke boys.
You pointed this out yesterday, Felix, that like it'd be funny if John Kerry wrote a book after he lost that he was the most unfairly treated man in American history. But I mean, you thinking back, he was treated way worse than Hillary
treated
was
him
by
like
Bernie.
shit,
And like,
Oh God! People
the
like you blew
Jets-
it. You
the-
fucking idiot.
the French
you
thing-
big stupid stone-headed freak. Get the fuck out of here! Everyone hated him instantly. He had no defenders.
He was so hapless. Do you remember the week after he lost, he announced some bill for like veterans and he cried during it? But the way they reported it was like, he also, before that, he said he wasn't going to run for president again. And they're like, John Kerry announces that he's not going to run for president
Weeps.
again and cries. And it's like, he can't.
Yeah.
Like, he's fine. He's a multi-millionaire
Yeah.
senator. Fucking,
Well, I mean, one of the things to give him credit for is he got destroyed, and then he said, "I'm not running again."
And he wrote his book was about
He
like
did
the
not say,
environment.
"We'll see." He didn't go into the woods and then come out and be like, "Well, let's talk about everyone who betrayed me."
Hillary should have
Howard
done.
Dean, you motherfucker.
She should have written a book about the environment because she's been in the woods since she
She could write like
retreated.
a new Sand County Almanac or something about
Yeah.
how to like eat grubs.
Yeah.
Or something.
No, this is a moment, and we talked. Let's not go back into the Hillary book because we talked about it in the last preview.
Well, we
episode.
probably are going to have.
We're gonna have to go
talk
back
about
to it.
the actual
They'll
book.
make us.
I'm going to write some more fake posts.
But I just was going to say this is a moment in which only in this year could that have really been a possible memoir to write.
Like Nixon, they stole it from him. Dead people in Chicago voted, and that's why he lost the presidency.
Yep.
And he didn't write a book.
And he never let it happen again.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made sure of it. He was actually a slay
Maybe
queen.
you could have done a bit of that in 2008 afterward, you know?
Nixon was 100% a slay queen. He was slaying fuckboys, serving looks, all that stuff. He was doing side eye.
Snatching wigs in Cambodia.
He was definitely doing
dude.
side eye.
Yeah, he was a thought. That's funny to imagine people running out of those words and they're like, they accidentally insult Hillary. They're like, Hillary's a fucking thought.
Yeah. Just going down the list.
Why is everyone mad at me?
Yeah.
But yeah, Bush era culture fucking ruled. Obviously, my favorite band, Stained.
That was their glory days. Yeah.
Because the Bush era was the golden era for guys who like wore flat brim caps and were pissed all the time. And Stained, all their albums were called like Pissed Inside. Like angry because I'm pissed and like a pissed season. And the cover was always like, what if there was a tornado and it was also raining? I just realized that why Stained and all those bands were so big, like all the pissed guy bands. Because what was the animating politics of the time? It was a bunch of people who have never been to New York and fucking hate it, being like, you don't strike our fucking country. I'm going to kill you. And not because they particularly liked New York or even gave a shit about those people that died, but it was just like, oh, I can finally be pissed.
Yeah, it was a
And-
big excuse to be pissed.
there was a lot of ambient pissed that exploded after 9/11 because
Right.
remember Woodstock 99?
Yeah, fuck
It
that.
was fest.
200,000 asshole frat boys who had enough money to go to upstate New York and get hepatitis in a mud puddle, deciding that this world was bullshit and they were going to burn it down for some reason. And then a couple years later, it's like, oh, now I actually have a thing I can pretend to be mad about.
Yeah, and we can burn down the world by invading Iraq. And when people like the dialogue policing about Iraq, especially from like liberals, was kind of like, look, you can oppose the war, but do not deny people's lived experiences of being pissed.
Yeah.
That was basically it. And it was like,
Yeah. Did
Indirectly.
did the guy from Stained do sing the national anthem during Bush, or was that after?
I think I was after.
he has a good
Sadly.
voice. Aaron Lewis has a good voice.
He does.
I have to say, I never got why that was such a bad rendition.
No, because he fucked up the words.
Yeah, he fucked up the words of his voice.
Who cares?
Angelic.
Stupid
I mean,
song.
I wouldn't care if I were there.
It's a shitty song.
I don't think that the Trump like it's not like that now.
No.
Like you can say Trump sucks as we've all seen in the most lame way possible, and it's fine. But in the Bush years, it was like kind of difficult.
Well, there will
Until like
be-
2005.
I mean,
The thing is, there will be a backlash, like Kathy Griffith, for example.
Yeah.
But because the news cycle moves so fast,
forgot
and
about
there's so
that.
much happening, it's
true.
like it's over in a week.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the Dixie Chicks thing, that was a multi-year jihad against.
and also,
Yeah.
let's be
Yeah.
clear that they did it. Let me be clear. They did it in a country genre. Like
yeah,
that was
they did it in a very
that's the wrong genre. I mean, I'm not saying they fucked up, but that's a bad genre to say that. in.
Nashville country, dude. We went on a vacation
Or
of this.
the right one.
Or the fucking exactly the one you should do it. in.
When I was a kid, when I was like God, I think I was like 14. It was like early 2005 before Katrina. We went on a vacation through the South, like me, my mom, and my dad. And my dad read the book Ghosts of Mississippi before. And so just any white person he met over 40, he was like, fuck you. But, you know, he was correct to think they probably were doing some bad stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had never been. And it was a very interesting time because it was like the height of Bush Southern evangelical Christian nationalism, where they thought the Jews were like a sacred race that had to be protected and loved, and they'll unleash their secrets on you.
Yes.
So it was like very weird to see like the smiles that people would give you if you were like kind of visually like Jewy looking.
Yeah.
They'd be like, we're doing this for you, man.
Yeah. Terrifying. I'm going to do my best Will Menaker right now. Okay, I think that's as good a place as any to close it out. Karina Moreno, thank you for joining us. Till next week, guys.
Bye-bye.
Hasta la Prado.
Bye. Yeah, okay, we stopped recording because we were talking about how that it's a horseshoe theory that if you do Obama voice enough, it becomes Jeb Bush.
Please clap.
Yeah.
Miracle should.
They become the same person. And Felix, you just started talking about how Jeb Bush was, when he was doing an interview about how he likes comic books or some shit to make him relatable. And then he was like,
He's like, yeah, it's Wonder Woman. She's pretty hot.
Yep.
I pound off to her all the time.
That's probably going to get me in trouble. Oh, well.
And in the same interview, he said, wow, those Marvel movies, I sure would like some stock in that company.
Yeah.
I can't believe he lost.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so relatable things like, damn, have you seen the profit margins on those fucking superhero movies? They're tight, yo.
The difference between Jeb and Obama is Obama is very competent, and no matter what he's saying, let me be clear. 10 years and we still pwn each other's brown taint area. It's like very, no matter what he's saying, it's like, has some tone to it. But Jeb Bush is, it's kind of like an interrogative tone to everything he says because he's not sure. And if people are like, Jeb, it's weird to say that you want to own stock. You're saying I was just conjecturing, brother. Got to have it. Got to have those things that you're not sure what you're going to say by the time it gets out of your mouth. And
Dividends.
It's going to make fun of you.
Gotta love them, brother.
Yeah.
Gotta love dividends.
Yep.
We were thinking about if Jeb went on Howard Stern like Trump did.
Right. Oh, God.
Yeah, woman's my favorite part of a woman, probably maybe the butt. Really a fan of haunches. They're very, very attractive to me. They make me feel ways, certain things.
It was like Felix, though, you said that like when you said, "Oh, yep." Called Wonder Woman hot, that'll probably get me in trouble. As if like Trump wasn't out every day on the campaign trail, just
Folks,
being like,
I could have fucked Candace Bergen.
just like Jeb on Howard Stern is something we should return to at some point.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
We could do it like that would be a good cold open or something.
Jeb on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, we did Hillary on Joe Rogan.
Wow, I got to tell you, I took your advice, Joe. And I did DMT.
Yep. His DMT trip would be like, I realized that I'm not the value investor I thought I was.
Yeah. Well, he would call it like DMX by accident. There'd be a whole news cycle at how he fucked that up. Joe would defend him and be like,
he's fucking trying.
He's trying, dude. Lay the fuck off. All right. I just wanted 5 minutes of Jeb Bush on Howard Stern. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
I love it, brother.